I live in Lower Alabama, Zone 8B. Now I've seen trees out here, satsumas, kumquats, even grapefruit, growing pretty well, producing fruit, looking happy. Yet we're really a borderline area for citrus. And when people plant new citrus trees, they often die. So why is your neighbor's tree doing all right, but your tree's dead? That's what we're going to talk about today. A couple of weeks ago, I visited Luke at A Natural Farm near Orlando, Florida. Down there, they do get freezes occasionally, but they're growing a lot of avocados. And some of these varieties of avocados that they grow can handle weather all the way down into the teens. That's pretty cold for what you would normally consider to be a tropical tree. And yet, it's not perfectly safe to plant these trees. And sometimes they die. A lot of people have told me, like, oh, well, I bought this tree and it's cold hardy and I planted it and it died the first year.
Right.
What are they doing? What's wrong with them?
It's critical. That's what we put on the website. When people order, we indicate cold hardy when mature. So if you do buy a 3-gallon avocado, which is what we mostly ship, we indicate and we remind them when we email the confirmation, this tree is not cold hardy right now. So it will be cold hardy when it's about 6-7 feet, good sized trunk, which will be 1 to 2 years after that stage. So yeah, it's critical that they understand that it's cold hardy when mature.
So trees gain in cold hardiness as they get older. As the size of the trunk increases, as the canopy increases, as the roots go deeper, the tree improves in its cold hardiness. So a frost that might kill a little tree, those brand new beautiful satsumas that you decided to plant in Zone 8, a frost might kill those. But if that tree had been in the ground for 5 or 6 years and it started to develop and was happy and producing fruit and it went down to 20 degrees or so, it could just sail right through because it's old enough to manage it. So it's the difference of maybe an adult being able to handle harsher conditions than a brand new infant. You have to treat those little trees really carefully to make sure that they get through. So what can you do when you put a little tree in the ground? Other than just wait for 5 years and hope you don't get a harsh winter. Maybe it'll get big enough before we get another freeze. No, chances are a freeze is going to kill it. So what do? I'm going to give you 6 methods for keeping a little tree alive until it gets bigger. Why? If you simply put a sheet over a tree or a blanket over a tree, that traps in some of the warmth coming up from the ground and it can keep the frost from settling down onto the tree, and you will have a much higher survival rate. You will gain a few degrees effectively, and the frost does not damage a tree as easily underneath a cover. This is sort of a passive way of keeping in some warmth and keeping it from freezing, and it's only good for a few degrees, but that can make all the difference. We use cheap thrift store sheets. We get them for a few bucks each, and we can just throw them over the trees. One year, we just went to the thrift store and said, are there sheets you guys aren't going to sell, maybe that you're sorting through right now? And they gave us an entire bag of sheets. I think we spent $10 and we got like 10 or 15 sheets. And that's enough to cover 10 or 15 trees. So think of that in terms of future fruit yields, and that's a pretty good investment. Now you can do another one better and add Christmas lights underneath the sheet. It's very festive. If you have a tree that is somewhat cold sensitive and you're afraid it's going to get below freezing and it's going to take that tree out, you can string Christmas lights on it. Now this used to work really well back 10 or 15 years ago when we had incandescent bulbs that put out some heat. But now a lot of Christmas lights are LEDs and they just don't put out that much heat at all. So you need Christmas lights that are going to put out some heat or this method won't work. Another thing you can do is put a sheet over it and put a lamp underneath. And if you have a incandescent bulb, again, you need an incandescent bulb because it's going to put out more heat. This will work and it can make a nice little pocket of heat. Now you do have to run an extension cord or have a generator running all night, which would be kind of ridiculous, but you're going to have some source of power in order to do this. So if you get a cold night and the power's out, well, good luck. Hey guys, I know it's kind of late out, but my sister said that I should just add this to the video. and tell everybody to like and subscribe and hit the bell and comment below. Thanks, guys. Please do it. Okay, bye. 3. Another method to keep trees from freezing to death on a cold night is to irrigate. Now, this doesn't sound like it would make sense. To run water, to run a sprinkler on a tree when it's freezing? I mean, I wouldn't want to be out in freezing weather and sopping wet, but trees are a little bit different. If the water is running over a tree, it doesn't freeze solidly. It may get ice on it, but it is not going to freeze it to death. Just the process of it freezing keeps it around 32 degrees instead of plummeting lower. We did this on our loquat tree, and we successfully got fruit off the loquat tree. Now, on the downside, we broke a bunch of branches of the loquat tree because it was freezing for almost 2 days, and as that sprinkler ran, it kept putting ice onto the branches, and I didn't count on how heavy that ice could be, and it pulled branches down, and it broke them. But we still got fruit off the broken branches. So it's not necessarily the best. It's better in a short duration because that ice can get to be very heavy. But running the sprinkler overnight is definitely an option. Another option is to simply grow trees and keep them pruned in pots. Put them in large pots and then haul the pots in and take the pots out. Now, what sometimes happens is that people will plant trees in pots. Like I heard of a guy who's got a couple of mango trees. He put them in pots, and after 4 years, they've gotten too big and he can't haul them in and out anymore, so he's stuck. You don't have to do that. You just have to keep them pruned. Listen, if people can keep bonsai trees 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and the tree is 2 foot tall, you can totally prune back trees. I have other videos on keeping your fruit trees small, and you can apply those methods to trees in pots and keep them at 5 or 6 foot in height in a 30 or 40 gallon pot, and you could grow beautiful tropical fruit way outside of its range. And you just have to remember that you have to pull them in, because if you leave them out one night, they're dead. This allows you to grow things like star fruit or jaboticaba or papayas or whatsoever you want from the tropics in a climate where that wouldn't normally be possible. We did this with coffee, and we successfully got coffee fruit, coffee beans from a coffee for multiple years by putting it in a big pot and then bringing it inside during the winter, and then bringing it out to get some sun, and then bringing it back inside, and then later we got a greenhouse and we just stuck it in there, and that was a lot easier. But it works. This can be done. If there's a particular fruit you really want to have, get a big pot, keep the tree pruned small, and bring it in when you get freezes. Then you can have delicious fruit that nobody else has. 5. Another trick that is a passive way to keep the cold from killing small trees is to plant them at the edge of an existing canopy. If you plant a tree right out in the middle of your yard, it's just asking to be killed. All the cold of space is going to come down and freeze that tree overnight. I did an experiment once where I planted one orange tree out in my grass, and then I planted another orange tree just underneath the edge of a oak canopy. The one that was underneath the oak canopy showed no frost damage on a freezing night. The one that was about 30 feet from it, out in the open, it froze so badly that it cracked the bark and killed the tree down to the rootstock. So just that little bit of shade over a tree overnight can make a big difference. And this is something people don't often realize, but if you don't have your tree exposed to the night sky, if there is some cover above it, it makes all the difference in the world. Even the overhang of a house, if you put a tree right up against the wall, makes a big difference on a freezing night. 6. Finally, my very favorite way to protect trees overnight is to use sheets, but to add a 55-gallon drum of water beneath the sheet. This works if you're in a climate like mine, zone 8 or zone 9, maybe a zone 7, where you get cold for a day or 2 days or 3 days in a row, but it does not stay below freezing for multiple days. It does not stay below freezing long enough to freeze that barrel of water. That water acts like a battery, giving you thermal mass next to your tree. And we do even one better, and we put it on the north side of the tree. So the tree is on the south side of the barrel, which protects it from the cold a little better, I think. And then we cover it with a sheet. So you basically have a barrel that acts as a passive heater and takes a very, very long time to get down to freezing. Just a little bit of extra warmth radiating out of that barrel overnight is enough to keep a tree from death or from frost damage. We had a brand new young Satsuma tree. It went through a 16-degree night and then another night of about 18 degrees, and it never rose above freezing for the day in between, and it didn't show any damage except for a couple of leaves that got stuck outside of the sheet and froze off. The rest of it looked brand new, like it had just come out of a hothouse. Very happy, beautiful green leaves, and that barrel did not freeze during that time period, and it kept it from death. So, those are my tips for keeping your fruit trees from freezing, and hopefully you'll only have to do these things for 4, 5, 6 years. Put in the effort on the front end, and then you're going to have trees that can handle these short-term cold events and continue to fruit for decades to come. I'm David the Good. If you want to learn more about pushing the zone, check out my book, Push the Zone, where I tell you how to grow tropical plants outside the tropics. And also, if you want to join my Food Forest group and see the Food Forest course and everything, you can join for free right now. Check it out for 7 days. School.com/the-survival-gardener. I'll put a link below. Thanks for joining me. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.